I'm gonna trigger an apocalypse in this world 2,000 years from now, and I'll just let humanity get ready for it. So let's see what kind of progress they make, and if they can actually survive. It all started in year 1, when the first humans showed up, Petalmomo and Fruticid. I gave them a little message like, "Hey guys, just so you know, I'm gonna destroy your world in 2 millennia.
Okay.
And yeah, they immediately got to work. They started building stuff, making progress, and spreading the word to future generations. By the way, are those kids already running around? I didn't even notice. Anyway, by this point, they had officially founded their kingdom and picked Petalmomo as their king. And honestly, he spent most of his time just chilling in his tent while everyone else worked their butts off. I mean, I kind of relate. Humans actually progressed pretty fast. In just a few years, they had their little huts everywhere and even built their first town hall. They also formed their very first army, led by Captain Banner, the firstborn of the original humans. A few more years went by, and boom, they built a windmill, started farming, and even began mining for the first time. They also set up some defense towers, just in case. And wow, these houses are way nicer than the old huts. Looks like they're starting to upgrade, you know? I can even see they've drawn paths connecting every house. So yeah, the village is really starting to take shape. Before long, they already had little fishing boats sailing around, and a proper port to dock them, of course. I also noticed the kingdom started sending out settlers to new lands, discovering fresh territories and founding brand new villages. They were already building their own town halls and warehouses to store their supplies. Looks like they're starting to expand their territory. Let's see how long it takes before they try to conquer the whole world. By this point, they had to build more windmills since their growing population needed way more food. Oh, and by the way, their biggest military breakthrough around this time was learning to use sticks as weapons. Yeah, not exactly brilliant when it comes to war tech, huh? Soon after, a massive flood hit this world. It rained for days and nights, non-stop. But that didn't stop them. They kept expanding, improving their ports, and upgrading their boats. And yes, that's definitely a boat. Hey, look at that. We meet again after all these years. Seems like the sun's finally shining again. They've sent settlers toward what would be Canada in our world. Their houses look way nicer now, kind of like a cute little neighborhood, and their town hall even has some gold details on it, apparently. From what I can see, they also built barracks to train their soldiers more effectively. And they didn't just focus on physical training. They went for the mental side too, building their very first library. And here I am, noticing they've built a bunch of crab statues for some reason. I mean, do they worship that thing instead of me? I'm literally their god, technically speaking. Anyway, I stumbled upon a lost ship somewhere in Asia. Maybe they're mapping the area, planning future expansions or something. So far, things are looking pretty good for them, but I'm still a little worried about their military progress. I mean, they've got to survive an apocalypse eventually, and they'll need some serious firepower for that. Okay, so a few years went by, and humanity had already managed to take over the entire American continent. On top of that, they reached the African coast too, which honestly makes me really curious to see how they'll develop there, since most of that continent is just pure desert, and yet they're still trying to colonize it. It didn't take long before humans started upgrading their buildings with much cleaner, fancier designs. By this point, their population hit around 1,500 people, but they'd better watch out for the growing homelessness rate. It's been going up ever since the beginning. Many years later, humans had conquered more than half the planet, with villages spread across even the most remote corners of the world. Still, there were huge areas left unclaimed. They even managed to survive the freezing winds of a massive blizzard that hit the planet for several years straight. But hey, keep pushing forward and try not to freeze, alright? Seriously, don't die on me. And before we knew it, they had conquered the entire world. But there was still a problem. Okay, this guy has a hammer, this one has a spear, and that one's holding a bronze axe. That's not gonna cut it. They won't survive the apocalypse I'm planning with gear like that. Alright, I have to do something. I decided to build a small island in the middle of the ocean and place a monolith on it with a very important message for humanity. Better start building more weapons, or you guys are so screwed. So with that message sent, all that was left was for them to find it. Once they did, they notified their king, who immediately ordered research into better war gear. After a few years, or centuries to be exact, they discovered gunpowder that kicked off the production of the first firearms, which were sent in small batches to the army for testing. Once they proved to work reliably, humanity used the remaining years to mass produce them and get fully ready for what had been foretold since the dawn of their time. That's how the first calamity started. We're now in the year 2026, and there are more than 4,600 humans alive. Everyone is armed, carrying firearms, and this spreads across every continent. So, after all that prepping, the day finally came to face their fate. Early in 2026, a monster showed up on the west coast of America and started to... Okay, I didn't see that coming. I guess they just survived the first phase of this. We're now in the middle of 2026, and it's time for the second disaster to hit this world. Alright, who hasn't wondered what would happen if aliens invaded? So I'm gonna drop a bunch of UFOs to find out. I placed several ships in the planet's most important spots, leaving about 300 vessels for humanity to face, plus 600 extra aliens. See, when each ship is destroyed, it drops 2 more aliens who keep fighting the humans on the ground. Out of nowhere, the aliens started attacking. For some reason, the alien ships give me the worst lag until the last one finally fell, and I could actually see what was going on. The land where the UFOs appeared was completely scorched, a bunch of houses destroyed, but surprisingly not too many human casualties. After those first two somewhat messy calamities, we move on to the third and penultimate disaster. This one is going to be way tougher than the last, so I'm going to spawn a bunch of demons across the continents. I'm honestly worried about whether they'll hold up, or whether my computer will survive this. Unlike before, this time I'll spawn 1,000 demons in the same areas, and they're a lot stronger and harder for humanity to beat. Let's see how they handle that. The battle kicked off everywhere at once. Humans defended themselves with everything they had, even civilians getting out there to put out fires caused by the demon fights. Turns out they handled it shockingly well. Most places were out of danger, and in others, the only thing left was the fires locals were slowly putting out. Even though the battle was pretty short, humanity took heavy losses, dropping to just about 1,700 survivors, who threw themselves into rebuilding the kingdom. But now it's time for them to face the final and worst disaster of all, and for this one, I'm doing things differently. If I just unleashed it on the world as it is, there would be no way they'd survive. So I grabbed another monolith and sent a message to the current king, placing it right in the capital, just a few meters from the royal palace. I told him to gather everyone in one place. When the king got the message, he ordered every single person to come to the city, where humanity was born over 2,000 years ago, the city the humans named Laltark. Slowly boats started arriving, and the city filled up until every human on the planet was standing there together, because only together could they face this. Year 2055, the year the final phase of this apocalypse begins. Humanity is about to face the biggest zombie apocalypse ever spawned in a video game. See, since the creation of this world, a total of 46,182 creatures have died, and now they will rise as the undead, trying to end humanity once and for all. So yeah, I plan to spawn over 46,000 zombies and throw them at these 1,700 humans. Let's see if they can survive this final test. Alright, this is gonna take a minute. And that's how I began generating wave after wave of zombies. Finally, after a couple hours, the last catastrophe was ready. Now the real question is, can my computer, humanity, handle this? So the time came to start. I can't believe it runs smoother with 46,000 zombies than it did with 300 UFOs. Whatever. Bullets and explosions were raining down everywhere. The zombie pressure was so intense that humans couldn't stop them from reaching the coasts and pouring into the kingdom. Even so, they found ways to take out a bunch of zombies with every shot, squeezing the most out of the ammo they had. Fights were happening all across North America, since this was the biggest challenge humanity had faced yet. The war dragged on for years, with Alaska being one of the hardest hit regions. Luckily, the zombies weren't exactly the smartest creatures out there. A bunch of them got stuck on tiny islands where humans took advantage and wiped them out without taking any real risks. Before long, the entire west coast had been cleared, but there were still massive clusters left in Mexico and eastern Canada where warships were helping from a distance. At this point, humanity was down to just over 1,000 survivors, but incredibly, they managed to cut the zombie population down to fewer than 9,000, keeping the infection rate surprisingly low. Seeing how effective water-based attacks were, more warships joined in to slowly wipe out the remaining hordes. Up north in Canada, there were still a few groups left, but one clever human had managed to grab a weapon from one of the old aliens. Sadly, he was infected, so he fought as hard as he could until he finally turned and was put down. A few years later, hope started shining brighter than ever. Humanity finally felt ready to launch one last strike against the zombies in Alaska. They lost control of the area, but still managed to take out every last undead creature there. And that's how, after overcoming every disaster thrown their way, humanity earned the peace they'd been fighting for across years and decades. A new era of calm and prosperity ruled the world, and by the year 2100, they had fully rebuilt and repopulated their civilization.